300 meters beneath a pitch-black ocean surface, a Russian submarine captain's hand hovered over the final button. One press, one cable severed. Trillions of dollars in chaos. NATO's communication backbone shattered. The mission was 60 seconds from completion when his sonar operator whispered 3 words that froze every man in the control room. "We are illuminated." Impossible. They had been silent for 48 hours. Undetected by German frigates, invisible to Swedish patrol boats, a ghost gliding through the Baltic's darkest depths. The submarine, nicknamed the Black Hole for its ability to simply disappear, had never been caught. Not once. Not ever. But in the 18 minutes they spent approaching their target, something had been watching, listening, calculating. And now, with surgical precision, that invisible observer was about to demonstrate why challenging the United States Navy in these waters wasn't just dangerous, it was suicidal. The captain's console lit up with a coordinate, his exact position, accurate to within 5 meters. Below it, a message in cold digital text. Target locked. Disengage immediately. His blood turned to ice. They weren't just detected. They were in a cage, and the door was closing. What happened in the next 90 seconds would expose the deadliest secret in modern warfare, humiliate one of Russia's most elite submarine crews, and prove that in the age of networked naval dominance, there is nowhere left to hide. The Russians had chosen their target with surgical precision. Deep below the Baltic surface ran something more valuable than oil pipelines, more critical than shipping lanes. A fiber optic cable no thicker than a garden hose, carrying the invisible lifeblood of Western civilization. Financial transactions worth trillions, military communications, intelligence data flowing between NATO capitals. Sever that cable, and you don't just cut a wire. You perform digital surgery on the entire alliance's nervous system. Moscow's planners understood something profound about 21st century conflict. You don't need to fire missiles or invade territories to cripple an enemy. You strike where they're vulnerable, where attribution is murky, where plausible deniability shields you from direct retaliation. This is hybrid warfare at its most sophisticated. A bloodless act of aggression that inflicts catastrophic damage, while leaving no smoking gun. The submarine they selected for this mission embodied Russian naval philosophy perfectly. Advanced coding technology rendered it nearly invisible to passive sonar systems. Electric propulsion systems allowed it to glide through the water, generating almost no acoustic signature. At depths exceeding 200 meters, moving at barely 3 knots, it became what submariners call a hole in the ocean, a void where detection systems registered nothing but ambient noise. Russian confidence wasn't baseless arrogance. For 2 full days, this underwater ghost had evaded every German and Swedish naval asset in the region. Their sonar operators heard nothing, their magnetic sensors registered nothing. The submarine's captain, a veteran of countless covert operations, watched his navigation screens with the satisfaction of a chess master executing a perfect endgame. His orders from Moscow were explicit and non-negotiable. Execute the mission. Under no circumstances retreat. But Moscow's admirals had made a fatal assumption. They believed NATO's northern flank remained a patchwork of national navies with limited coordination, each operating within its own technological and bureaucratic silos. They assumed that Swedish and Finnish NATO membership, though recent, hadn't fundamentally altered the Baltic strategic reality. Most critically, they underestimated what happens when the United States Navy enters the equation with its full technological arsenal. The Baltic had indeed transformed into something unprecedented. With Finland and Sweden now flying the NATO flag, this inland sea had essentially become an alliance lake, surrounded on nearly all sides by member states. For Russia, this represented strategic encirclement, a noose tightening around its northwestern territories. The response was predictable, but dangerous. If conventional military options were suicidal, then unconventional warfare became the only viable strategy. The submarine crept closer to its target coordinates, its crew operating in complete silence protocols. Every system that could generate noise was shut down or minimized. The vessel relied on passive sensors, listening to the ocean without revealing its presence. In the control room, officers communicated through hand signals and whispered commands. The technical team prepared their specialized equipment, a device designed to cut through armored fiber optic cable with mechanical precision. They were 300 meters from their objective when the trap closed around them. What the Russians didn't realize was that they'd been tracked for the past 18 minutes, not by Swedish frigates or German patrol boats, but by a technological ecosystem so integrated, so responsive, that it functioned less like separate military units and more like a single, distributed organism with sensors everywhere and processing power that could turn raw data into actionable targeting information in seconds. High above the Baltic, a United States Navy maritime patrol aircraft traced geometric patterns across the sky. This wasn't just surveillance. It was the orchestration of a detection grid that combined multiple sensing technologies into an overwhelming information advantage. The aircraft deployed sonobuoys in mathematically calculated positions, creating an underwater listening network spanning over 100 square nautical miles. Each buoy transmitted acoustic data in real time, feeding into analysis systems that could distinguish a submarine propeller signature from biological noise, commercial shipping, and natural ocean phenomena.
But the acoustic network was only one dimension of this hunt. Trailing behind the aircraft, a 15-foot magnetic sensor boom continuously scanned the Earth's magnetic field below. Submarines, regardless of how quiet they run, cannot hide their massive metal mass. Every vessel creates magnetic anomaly, a distortion in the background field that sensitive equipment can detect. When that anomaly matched the known profile of a Russian submarine and correlated with faint acoustic traces, the puzzle pieces snapped together with damning clarity. The data fusion happened automatically, instantaneously. Information from the patrol aircraft, from NATO surface warships, from subsurface sensors, all flowed into a tactical data network operating at the speed of light. The central node of this network was an American destroyer, its combat systems representing the pinnacle of naval warfare technology. Aegis radar systems, originally designed to track incoming missiles, had evolved into something far more versatile. They could process millions of data points per second, correlating information from dozens of sources, presenting human operators with a clear tactical picture where Russian submariners saw only the darkness of deep water. In the destroyer's Combat Information Center, the tactical action officer watched her displays with professional calm. The submarine appeared not as speculation or possibility, but as a confirmed target with a 98% confidence rating. Its exact position, speed, and heading were displayed with precision that would have seemed impossible just decades earlier. The combat system had already calculated firing solutions, pre-selecting weapons from vertical launch cells, weapons that could deliver torpedoes directly onto the target with supersonic speed and pinpoint accuracy. The critical moment arrived when the submarine reached its sabotage position. Inside its control room, the captain issued the command to prepare deployment of the cutting device. It was a routine order, one he'd given before on similar missions. But as an external valve opened with a tiny mechanical click, something changed. That sound, barely perceptible even to the submarine's own sensors, registered on the passive sonobuoy network. The acoustic signature, combined with the magnetic anomaly data, eliminated any remaining uncertainty. What happened next was a masterclass in coercive force without actual violence. The goal wasn't to sink the submarine, which would risk escalation into open conflict. The goal was to prove beyond any doubt that it had been detected, tracked, and targeted with such precision that its survival existed only because NATO chose to permit it. A Swedish submarine, operating nearby as part of coordinated exercises, fired an acoustic jamming device. The shockwave wasn't explosive, but its effect was immediate and devastating. The Russian submarine sonar systems went completely blind, overwhelmed by a wall of noise that obliterated their situational awareness. In an instant, they went from hunters to prey, from invisible operators to exposed targets flailing in confusion. Then came the demonstration. The American destroyer launched a training missile, its warhead removed, but its guided systems fully operational. The weapon climbed skyward at 3 times the speed of sound, executed a perfect trajectory correction, and impacted the water directly above the submarine's position. It carried no explosives, but its message was unmistakable. This is where you are. This is how precisely we can target you. If we wanted you dead, you would be. Active sonar buoys dropped from the patrol aircraft completed the psychological assault. Powerful acoustic pings began hammering the submarine's hull, destroying any remaining illusion of stealth. But the most chilling moment came through a data transmission, a digital message sent directly to the submarine through the sonobuoy network. It contained a single coordinate, matching the submarine's own navigation systems with an error margin of less than 5 meters. The text that accompanied it was brief and devastating. Target locked. Disengage immediately. Failure to comply will result in escalation. In the Russian control room, the captain faced an impossible choice that was actually no choice at all. Continue the mission and face weapons that were already locked on, or retreat and admit complete tactical failure. He chose survival, ordering maximum speed retreat. The submarine accelerated from its stealthy crawl to full propulsion, becoming as acoustically loud as a freight train underwater. Any possibility of plausible deniability evaporated in that moment. The mission was aborted, the cable remained intact, and Moscow's supposedly invisible operation had become a documented, tracked, and defeated act of aggression. The intelligence coup this represented cannot be overstated. The submarine's acoustic signature at high speed, recorded by multiple NATO assets under specific environmental conditions, became a permanent entry in sonar databases. Future detection would be exponentially easier. The technological profile of Russian tactics, equipment, and operational procedures was now fully documented. And the psychological impact, the proof that NATO's detection and response capabilities operated at a level Moscow had clearly underestimated, would influence Russian naval planning for years. The aftermath was silence from Moscow. No official statements, no denials, no diplomatic protests. The absence of response was itself an admission. How do you deny something when your adversary can produce time-stamped, multi-source data proving exactly what happened? The submarine that Russian naval propaganda had promoted as undetectable had been caught, cornered, and forced to flee with its mission incomplete and its stealth capabilities permanently compromised. For the United States Navy and its NATO partners, this represented something more significant than preventing one act of sabotage. It demonstrated the overwhelming advantage that comes from integration, from combining air, surface, and subsurface assets into a seamless detection and response network. No single sensor or platform had defeated the Russian submarine. Rather, it was the synthesis of multiple technologies, the rapid data sharing, the automated processing that turned raw information into actionable intelligence faster than human operators could manually coordinate.
This is what modern naval dominance looks like. Not battleships firing broadsides, but information networks so comprehensive that stealth becomes impossible. Not dramatic explosions, but the quiet certainty of weapon systems that have already achieved target lock before the enemy realizes they've been detected. The submarine captain made the only rational choice available to him, but rationality in that moment meant accepting complete tactical defeat. The broader strategic implications ripple far beyond one submarine in the Baltic. Russia's hybrid warfare strategy depends fundamentally on ambiguity, on striking in ways that avoid clear attribution and direct retaliation. But when technological superiority eliminates that ambiguity, when every action can be tracked, documented, and countered in real time, the entire strategic framework collapses. Invisible aggression becomes public humiliation when your adversary can prove exactly what you attempted and demonstrate they could have destroyed you with trivial ease. As the American destroyer resumed normal patrol status, the crew understood they'd participated in something significant, not a battle in the traditional sense, but a demonstration of capability so overwhelming that it redefined what's possible in modern naval warfare. The Baltic Sea, once a contested region where Russian submarines could operate with relative freedom, had become a monitored space where attempted aggression invited immediate, precise, and humiliating response. The message Moscow received was crystal clear. The era of uncontested hybrid operations beneath the waves has ended. Technology has caught up with stealth. Integration has overcome isolation.
and the United States Navy's ability to detect, track, and target submarines in supposedly undetectable conditions represents a paradigm shift in maritime warfare. The black hole submarine, Russia's pride, had become just another trackable target in NATO's comprehensive surveillance network. This confrontation reveals the future of conflict. Wars won't always be fought with missiles and explosions. They'll be fought with sensors and data, with network integration and processing speed, with the ability to turn the ocean's darkness into an illuminated battlefield, where nothing remains hidden for long. Russia learned that lesson in the most painful way possible, through public failure of an operation they believed was undetectable, stopped by adversaries they thought couldn't see them, forced into retreat by capabilities they'd catastrophically underestimated. The technological disparity exposed in these frigid Baltic waters extends far beyond naval capabilities. It represents a fundamental imbalance in how modern militaries process information and execute decisions. While Russian systems still rely heavily on centralized command structures and compartmentalized operations, NATO's integrated approach allows a Swedish submarine, an American destroyer, and patrol aircraft from multiple nations to function as a single, coordinated weapon system. The submarine captain never stood a chance because he was fighting against an entire networked ecosystem, not individual platforms. What makes this victory particularly devastating for Moscow is the economic calculation. The United States and its allies invested decades and billions developing these integrated systems, creating technological superiority that cannot be quickly replicated or countered. Russia's hybrid warfare strategy was supposed to be the asymmetric answer, the cost-effective way to challenge Western dominance without matching defense budgets dollar for dollar. But when that strategy fails spectacularly, when submarines costing hundreds of millions of dollars are rendered ineffective by detection systems they cannot evade, the entire strategic calculus collapses. Moscow must now reconsider every covert operation, every infrastructure target, every supposed gap in NATO defenses. Because if they couldn't hide a submarine in the Baltic's complex acoustic environment, where can they hide? The answer, increasingly clear to Russian naval planners studying this failure, is nowhere, and that realization fundamentally alters the balance of power across every maritime domain where NATO operates. The implications extend beyond military operations into the psychological realm of deterrence itself. Every Russian submarine commander now operates with the knowledge that their stealth advantage has been comprehensively negated. That psychological burden, the constant awareness of being potentially tracked and targeted at any moment, degrades operational effectiveness more than any weapon system could. Crews become hesitant, missions get scrubbed, and the aggressive posture that Moscow projects publicly becomes hollow theater when captains understand their vessels are swimming in what amounts to a transparent ocean. This is deterrence achieved not through destruction, but through demonstration. The West didn't need to fire a single live weapon to achieve total tactical dominance, proving that sometimes the most devastating victory is the one where your enemy realizes resistance is futile before the actual battle even begins.